Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. American Comics. My understanding is beyond belief, I created my own little universe. Chapter 41. Impossible. How can you, a mortal, suppress the destroyer armor? Loki stood on Asgard and saw the scene in front of him through the destroyer armor. He was so angry that the true form of the giants of Jotunheim was almost revealed. Kronos glanced at the destroyer armor in front of him, as if he knew what Loki was thinking. I said, if your godhood has been awakened, then I will turn around and leave. But it is obvious that you are not strong enough now. Even if you are now the king of Asgard, you can't defend Asgard. Kronos' voice fell, and the golden light on his body bloomed. The microcosm of the middle stage of the sixth sense boiled. The crystal wall squeezed the destroyer armor and made a crackling sound. It seemed that it would collapse directly in the next second if it could not bear it. I am a god. Loki widened his eyes. He looked at Kronos in front of him with gritted teeth. But Loki was only helpless and furious. Even driving the destroyer armor, he couldn't beat Kronos. If his real body went down, it would only be more miserable. No matter what you say, Asgard is now under my control. Even if Thor regains his power, he can't come back. Loki can only comfort himself in this way. Now he is the acting king announced by Frigga herself, holding the eternal spear Gungnir. If Odin's eternal sleep goes smoothly, it will last at least hundreds of years. These hundreds of years are completely controlled by Loki. Originally, Loki was going to lure Lof to assassinate Odin. Then he would come forward and kill Lof to prove that he would be a better pass than Thor. But after Kronos talked to him, all the resentment in his heart broke out. As Kronos said, he is not Odin's own flesh and blood. He is not an Aesir. He is just a giant of Jotunheim. Even if he proves that he is better than Thor, the position of king of Asgard will not be his. This gave Loki an idea, that is, to directly replace Odin and become the new king of Asgard. Once this idea sprouted, it could no longer be stopped. So Loki simply used the casket of ancient winters to suppress Lof, and then used the eternal spear to stab the other party to death. To say that Lof's death was also aggrieved. A powerful level godfather died in the hands of his own son. Definitely, Lof who lost the casket of ancient winters is far from the level of level godfather. Lof's own strength is not as good as Surta. Surta, who has the eternal fire, is definitely the strongest in the 9 realms. In order to plan Surta's eternal fire, Odin lost 2 or 3 brothers. Only then did he successfully take Surta, and put the opponent's eternal fire in Odin's treasury. Without the eternal fire, Surta's strength quickly weakened. Although he is still the ruler of Muspelheim, the fire demon. But now his strength has fallen from the title of Father of Heaven. He is even inferior to the sub-Father of Heaven. Otherwise, he would not be killed by Thor, who was holding Mjolnir and whose divine power had not yet awakened. Lof is in the same situation. But Lof's situation is worse than Surta's. Casket of Ancient Winters is the treasure of giants of Jotunheim. It can not only increase the strength of giants of Jotunheim, it can also suppress the blood of giants of Jotunheim. Lof, who lost Casket of Ancient Winters, also fell from status. He is far from the king of giants of Jotunheim who could fight back and forth with Odin. Extremely weak and defenseless, coupled with the suppression of Casket of Ancient Winters. Lof died under the Spear of Eternity in this way. Loki mastered Casket of Ancient Winters with the body of giants of Jotunheim and became the new king of giants of Jotunheim. In addition, Frigga announced that Loki is the acting king of Asgard. Loki is now the king of the 2 worlds of Asgard and Jotunheim. On the other side, looking at the destroyer armor that was suppressed by him and could not move, Kronos fell into thought. He couldn't suppress this thing like this all the time. As long as he let go, it would move freely. And the destructive power is amazing. Thor, I have a way to help you restore your divine power. After thinking about it, Kronos decided to give Thor a blow. What method? Thor came to Kronos' side, with an excited face. Do you believe that your father loves you? Kronos' words made Thor stunned. Then he said firmly, believe it. That's good. Kronos nodded. Then he punched Thor. This is a punch that is blessed with a small universe and is faster than the speed of sound. Even if Thor is the royal family of Asgard, God's body can't bear it. Thor was seen flying backwards for hundreds of meters under Kronos' punch. Then he landed heavily on the ground. There was no sound. Kronos' punch stunned everyone present. Thor. The three Asgard warriors and Sif shouted and ran towards the place where Thor fell. Loki, who was in Asgard, had a face full of question marks. Where did you say you would protect Thor? Why did you punch him back? Mortal. Sif looked at Kronos angrily. He was about to kill Kronos, the murderer who killed Thor. The three warriors of Asgard also looked at Kronos with murderous intent. Sir. Phil Coulson was also frightened by Kronos' punch. He even wondered if Kronos had reached some agreement with Loki, the new king of Asgard. That's why he attacked Thor. Come on, Odin, let me see if you plan to watch your son die like this. Kronos was not worried at all, because he knew what Odin was thinking. Odin was also unlucky. He was a qualified god king, but definitely not a qualified father. According to Marvel, Odin had 3 children. The first one was the eldest prince, who was also the god of light Balder. In myths and legends, this god of light Balder can almost be said to be the perfect heir. He was brave, powerful, and kind. But he died. In myths and legends, the cause of death was explained. But in the Marvel timeline, the cause of Balder's death is not clear. Even more straightforward, in many parallel universes, there is no god Balder at all. Even if there is, it is just a corpse or a legend. The number of appearances is very few. Definitely, this is also normal, after all, this is Marvel. The god of light is more like a curse. Among the 4 ancient gods of multi-universe creation, the only one who died is also the god of light. Oshtor, the messenger of light. All those who are well known in Marvel are evil gods. For example, the snake god Set and the god of the underworld Sithin. Mephisto, the lord of the hell dimension, and Dormammu, the lord of the dark dimension. There are also the outer god Eye Demon and Shumagras, and Mephistus Cytoric of the Crimson Universe, etc. These are essentially all evil gods. There are also countless gods who claim to be the incarnation of darkness and chaos. For example, the god of symbiotes, Null, the king of chaos, etc. But the gods of light are pitifully few. Even if there is, it is only a legend, or it has already fallen. It is precisely because of the fall of Balder, the god of light. Odin attaches great importance to his second child, Hela, who inherited the godhood of the goddess of death. Because he was afraid that Hela would fall like Balder, Odin tried every way to enhance Hela's strength. The stupidest thing he did was to connect Hela's origin with Asgard. This makes Hela stronger the longer she stays in Asgard. Hela did not disappoint Odin. At a young age, she awakened the godhood and mastered the power of God, accompanying Odin to conquer the universe and the 9 realms. Invincible and undefeated, knowing that Odin knew the existence of the Celestials. It is precisely because of the existence of the Celestials that Odin was discouraged. He gave up the idea of conquering the universe. But Hela, who enjoyed the ultimate killing and conquest, has gone astray. She thought Odin had lost his ambition, so she decided to replace him. This was also Odin's mistake. He forced the growth of Hela. Hela was very powerful, but Hela's nature gradually disappeared under the influence of the godhead of death. She only knew how to kill and conquer. The godhead of death affected Hela before she had fully established her values. This also led to her and Odin turning against each other. But Odin was unwilling to kill his own child, so he imprisoned Hela in Helheim. He hoped that Hela could control her own godhead and power in Helheim. Obviously, Odin failed again. Hela, who was sealed in Helheim, was full of resentment towards Odin. This also led to their relationship becoming more and more distant. Then it was Thor. After the incident with Hela, Odin decided to let Thor grow up freely and happily, to avoid becoming a god like Hela because of the early awakening of the power of God. So at the age of 1500, Thor is still a god who has not awakened the godhead. It is a bit weak, but Odin is very satisfied. But Odin didn't expect that Thor's rebellious period would come so late. He was more than 1500 years old, but he was thinking about rebellion. In desperation, Odin could only exile Thor. He hoped that mortal life could temper Thor's character. In Odin's view, compared with the fallen Balder and the already crooked Hela, Thor's problem was not a problem at all. The premise was that he had enough time. But Odin didn't expect that his eternal sleep would come so quickly. He ignored his age. This led to Thor's death before he fully grew up, although Loki contributed to it. In summary, Odin was definitely not indifferent to Thor. Because if Thor really died, then the heir to the throne of Asgard would really be vacant. Amid the anger of everyone, a thunder suddenly came from a distance. What is that? Mjolnir. Sif had heard this kind of thunder for thousands of years, so he would not have heard it wrong. Suddenly, dark clouds gathered in the distance, and lightning flashed. Boom! The sound of thunder shook the earth. Here it comes. Kronos looked at the movement in the distance. Mjolnir's flight was very fast. At least dozens of times the speed of sound. In almost a blink of an eye, it was already in Thor's hand. A lightning bolt thicker than a human fell down and struck Thor directly. The familiar armor covered Thor's body again. Thor on the ground opened his eyes. Lightning cut through the air. Thor, Kronos, you fool! Thor shouted to Kronos after regaining his power. Don't worry. Put away the destroyer armor. You don't want to collect the bodies of your friends. Kronos smiled and ignored Thor's roar. Loki. Thor spun Mjolnir. He rushed towards the destroyer armor. Kronos saw the opportunity and directly removed the crystal wall. Loki's power was no longer able to support the destroyer armor. The moment Kronos removed the crystal wall, the destroyer armor was blown away by Thor's hammer. Thor's hammer directly hit the core of the destroyer armor. The destroyer armor lost its power. It lost the blessing of the gods. The destroyer armor was just an ordinary Uru god steel. Although it was hard, it was not indestructible at all. Thor broke it into pieces in a few seconds. Looking at the fragments scattered all over the ground, Kronos remained calm. After all, these are all Uru steel. Just recycle and reuse them. Maybe the holy clothes will be there. Seeing the destroyer armor destroyed, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Thor, we have to return to Asgard as soon as possible. Sif said to Thor. The 3 Asgard warriors also gathered around. The purpose of their coming to Earth to find Thor is to let Thor return to Asgard and inherit the throne. Heimdall. Thor naturally knew the priorities of the matter. Heimdall, who was far away in Asgard, naturally heard Thor's call. The divine power surged all over his body, and he directly broke the seal of the casket of ancient winters. It's not that Loki didn't think about killing Heimdall. But Heimdall's strength is very strong. He can suppress him, but he can't kill him. And Heimdall has a high reputation in Asgard. He can be expelled, but killing him will shake his rule. Kronos, take good care of Jane for me, I will come back to find you. Before leaving, Thor looked at Kronos. No problem. Kronos nodded and agreed. Bifrost fell, and Thor and the other 4 disappeared. Phil Coulson, have you figured out how to report this? Kronos glanced at Phil Coulson. I'm already having a headache. Phil Coulson touched the top of his head. His already thin hair seemed to be falling again. Kronos didn't care. He and S.H.I.E.L.D. were essentially a cooperative relationship. Although he agreed to join the Avengers. But that was just to facilitate receiving the legacy. But Kronos now has a better plan. New York, Alexander Pierce's home. Is it you? Alexander Pierce looked at Kronos sitting on the sofa. A hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. Then he waved his hand and asked the people behind him to leave. The actual helmsman of the Sanctuary Group. A member of the Avengers. Why did you come to me? Alexander Pierce looked at Kronos, not knowing what he was thinking. I came to you to cooperate. Kronos said to Alexander Pierce. Cooperation? Didn't you join S.H.I.E.L.D.? Aren't we cooperating now? Alexander Pierce's answer was airtight. I mean, I want to cooperate with Hydra. As soon as Kronos said this, Alexander Pierce's face instantly turned gloomy. What do you know? Alexander Pierce resisted the urge to take action. Because he was one of the few people with level 10 authority in S.H.I.E.L.D. I had read Kronos's information. I had also read the battle between Kronos and Abomination. I knew Kronos's strength. Since the other party came to him, it meant that the other party had confirmed his identity. But Alexander Pierce couldn't think of how he was exposed. You have more authority in S.H.I.E.L.D. than Nick Fury. I've seen your plan. It's very difficult to implement it. Even if the aerospace carrier goes up, it will be easily shot down. For example, do you think I will be monitored by the aerospace carrier? Kronos said slowly. And Nick Fury has a backup plan. Impossible. Nick Fury and I have known each other for so long. There is nothing in S.H.I.E.L.D. that can be hidden from me. Alexander Pierce retorted subconsciously. What if the information is a paper record? Kronos' words made Alexander Pierce fall silent. The information that Nick Fury showed to Kronos was indeed true. It's just that it was polished by Nick Fury. There was no news about Carol in that information. All of it was done by Nick Fury himself. 9 true and 1 false. People who don't understand the situation are easily fooled. How do you want to cooperate? Alexander Pierce looked at Kronos. It's simple. We work together to control S.H.I.E.L.D. Nick Fury has many diehard fans, and your plan is not perfect. But with my help, your plan will be smoother than before. It's just that the plan needs some adjustments. Kronos said to Alexander Pierce. His new idea is to cooperate with Hydra. Compared with Nick Fury's desire for control, Hydra can give him more help. I've been concerned since the beginning. How did you know our plan? Alexander Pierce looked at Kronos. The Insight Plan is HYDRA's top secret. All those who know are HYDRA's confidants. It's almost impossible to betray Hydra. But Kronos just knew the news about Hydra. Not only that, he even knew everything about the Insight Plan. The Sanctuary Consortium has its own information channels. Since I've found you, I won't betray you. After all, you know the reputation of Hydra, don't you? Kronos looked at Alexander Pierce. One sentence silenced the other party. Because of the operations during World War II, Hydra is hated by everyone in this world. In addition, the organization's philosophy is also a bit radical. So those who can accept Hydra are almost all die-hards. But those who can't accept it are enemies. Don't underestimate Nick Fury. He's much smarter than you think. If I'm not mistaken, he should have noticed something wrong inside S.H.I.E.L.D. I personally suggest that you keep your moves low. Wait until the Avengers are officially established. I'll cooperate with you to get rid of Nick Fury. Kronos gave Alexander Pierce a shot of confidence. Why did you choose Hydra? This is what Alexander Pierce couldn't figure out. Although he also coveted the power that Kronos could get through practice. But Kronos was originally the helmsman of the Sanctuary Consortium, and his own power and connections were very exaggerated. It's simply Tony Stark on the extraordinary side. It's just that Tony's power comes from technology. And Kronos' power comes from himself. Because I think Hydra is purer. Kronos answered sincerely. Definitely, this is pure nonsense. Kronos' ultimate goal is to use the power of Hydra to get rid of Nick Fury. After all, this guy is the spiritual leader of S.H.I.E.L.D. Only when he dies can Kronos' plan proceed smoothly. But Kronos can't let others suspect him. So after Nick Fury's death, Hydra will also be buried with him. What Kronos wants is the dominance of the entire S.H.I.E.L.D. and Avengers. If Hydra can be swallowed, it will definitely be better. This is the first step of the God-making plan. Happy cooperation. Alexander Pierce was silent for a long time, but still raised the water glass in front of him. He had no reason to refuse cooperation with Kronos. After all, the power that Kronos could obtain through practice was very attractive. Not to mention that Kronos originally was an extraordinary strong man. Again, since we are cooperating, I hope we can be more sincere to each other. When Hydra takes action, I hope everyone can discuss it. Although we are partners, if Hydra has an impact on my plan, I will not show mercy. Definitely, I will also tell you when I take action against S.H.I.E.L.D. Kronos stood up and said directly. First courtesy, then force. Since the cooperation has been reached, the taboos must be made clear. Don't worry, I understand. Alexander Pierce said to Kronos. Aspros, our God-making plan can begin. After returning to the Manor Villa, Kronos said to Aspros. Understood, sir. Aspros' eyes lit up. Kronos' words are undoubtedly a signal. The Sanctuary Consortium is about to grow from an ordinary consortium to an extraordinary force. There's a chance to go back to Taro. Kronos looked at the distant sky and thought secretly. Taro is a pocket dimension attached to the Earth. Although it is a pocket dimension, the secret realm of Taro is not smaller than the Earth. In terms of land area alone, Taro may be even larger. And before Taro met the Soul Devourer, its civilization was also highly developed. Kronos wants to build Taro into the base camp of the Holy Land. But as far as the current situation is concerned, it is still a little short of the fire. After all, He is the only one who has awakened the sixth sense microcosm. Although the method of cultivation has been passed down, it is unknown whether anyone can break through. Kronos now has another idea, but this idea is very difficult. At least he has to wait until he reaches the seventh sense microcosm before it can be realized. With his current strength, that plan is just a dream. Let's settle the Earth first according to the original plan. Kronos doesn't know when he can realize the seventh sense. At present, he is not far from the late stage of the sixth sense. The late stage of the sixth sense means that Kronos has the power of level sub-Godfather. But for the microcosm, it is a qualitative leap to reach the seventh sense. The seventh sense, manas. It is essentially the sense of time. I hope I can understand it with the help of the time gem. Kronos closed his eyes and began to sort out the next plan. Kronos was calm, but Asgard was in an uproar. The prince rebelled, and Thor broke the Bifrost. As a divine domain, Asgard had not seen such a big thing for a long time. Odin's eternal sleep was also forcibly interrupted. This was bad news for the entire Asgard. The final result was that the second prince Loki fell into the universe and disappeared. Thor regained his status as the heir to the throne. About 3 months had passed on Earth. Asgard's Bifrost was finally repaired. Thor also came to Earth again, and found Kronos directly. So you mean, Loki is missing? Your father, that is, Odin, invited me to Asgard. Kronos said to Thor in front of him. Yes, my father knows that you helped me recover my divine power, and he is very curious about you. Thor replied with a smile. Looking at Thor, who was smiling so happily in front of him, Kronos sighed. Thor, do you know what Odin's current state means? Hearing Kronos' words, Thor was a little puzzled. What does it mean? Thor asked with a puzzled look. Haven't you read the books in your Asgard? Odin's failure to sleep forever means that his life has begun to count down. Kronos said helplessly. This is impossible. My father's divine power is unprecedentedly strong now, how could he enter the countdown of his life? Thor denied it categorically. Forget it, I'd better go to Asgard with you. Some things are better to talk to Odin in person. Kronos looked at Thor's appearance and knew that this guy never read books even in Asgard. Heimdall. Seeing that Kronos accepted the invitation, Thor called Heimdall directly. The Bifrost fell, and Kronos and Thor disappeared. Is this Asgard? It's quite spectacular. After Kronos walked out of the Bifrost, what came into view was the sea of stars. The entire Asgard is located in the universe. After all, it is Asgard, and the Aesir people don't need oxygen. Welcome to Asgard. Heimdall looked at Kronos with a smile. I have heard of you. There are stories about you in myths and legends, Heimdall. Kronos also greeted Heimdall in a friendly manner. Odin is waiting for you. Heimdall gestured for the two to go to the Asgard Hall. Fortunately, both of them can fly. Otherwise, it would take half a day to walk just for one Bifrost. The Asgard Hall is a place that Asgard usually uses for meetings and banquets. It is very large and spacious. Welcome to Asgard, friend of Thor. Odin sat on the throne, looking very old. It doesn't match the legendary God King at all. More like an old man on his deathbed. But Kronos knew that this kind of Odin was the most terrifying. Because now Odin was so powerful that he couldn't control himself. The father of God, His Majesty Odin. Kronos also greeted Odin. Can we talk alone? Odin looked at Kronos. Definitely. Kronos would naturally not refuse Odin's invitation. After all, this time he came to trade with Odin. Then Odin signaled Thor to leave. In the entire Asgard Hall, only Odin and Kronos were left. Young man, you have great potential. Odin saw through Kronos' current state almost at a glance. Kronos' strength exceeded Odin's expectations. Hearing the news about Kronos from Thor before, and the deal that the other party wanted to make, Odin realized that Kronos was not simple. But after meeting, Odin found that Kronos was even more than he expected. Odin could see it. Kronos' aura has surpassed Thor. Reached the level sub-Godfather. But the aura is still not balanced. This shows that Kronos has not yet grown to the peak. According to Odin's observation, even if Kronos does not touch the godhead, does not deify himself, he can still reach the peak level of the level sub-Godfather. This really shocked Odin. Level sub-Godfather, even in the entire universe, is a powerful person. In the entire 9 realms, there are only a few powerful people who can reach the level sub-godfather. I chose to meet you, it's right. Odin praised. I heard from Thor that you want to make a deal with Asgard. Yes, I want to touch the godhead. Kronos nodded. Odin's straightforwardness made him a little stunned. Okay, but you have to agree to one condition of mine. Odin agreed to Kronos' request. What condition? Kronos already had a guess in his mind. I failed in my eternal sleep, and my life has entered the countdown. According to my estimate, I will go to Sol Castle in 10 years at most. Once I die, Asgard will usher in the end. I hope you can help Asgard survive Ragnarok. Odin's words did not surprise Kronos. After all, this was something he had already guessed. It's just that Kronos is still weighing it. Are you so sure that I can help Asgard survive Ragnarok? That is a disaster that even you, the Father of Heaven, are very secretive about. Kronos looked at Odin and did not immediately agree to his request. I am not referring to this Ragnarok. Odin's voice was full of fatigue. What do you mean? Kronos was shocked. He knew the truth about Asgard Ragnarok. I just have this feeling. Asgard, to be precise, all the new gods, are all manipulated by an unknown force. The universe is constantly opening up, and new gods are constantly growing. When the time is right, the twilight of the gods will come. The power of the gods' growth will be harvested by unknown beings. Although I don't know how long it lasts. But I can roughly perceive that it is definitely not as simple as 1 or 2 times. Odin's eyes were confused. This unknown power is more powerful than him. Even more powerful than the mother of the gods, the earth goddess Gaia. The gods seem to be shining. But it is just a tool in their hands. How did you know? Kronos looked at Odin. This matter was indeed discovered by Odin in a certain timeline. In the constant reincarnation, Odin found something wrong. But in the end, it was Rune King Thor and story god Loki who solved this matter. No way, is it that I traveled through the timeline of that universe. Kronos felt that he should have won the prize. Because in these 2 timelines, the masters of multi-universe are Rune King Thor and story god Loki respectively. If it is Rune King Thor, Kronos can be sure that he has the hope of breaking through the multi-universe level. I just feel something is wrong. Ragnarok, I seem to have experienced it many times. And it seems like I have never experienced it. In fact, the first time I noticed something was wrong was when my brothers died in battle. At that time, I suddenly had a moment of trance. It was as if they had died thousands of times in front of me. It was as if Surta was Asgard's lingering nightmare. Odin said, clenching his fists. This time, I was actually awakened by myself from the eternal sleep. It has nothing to do with Loki. My eternal sleep is doomed to fail. Because as long as I am alive, Ragnarok will not come. This time, I saw myself in the parallel universe during the eternal sleep. They all told me that I must stop Ragnarok. Odin helplessly let go of the twin waters. He didn't even know who his opponent was. How could he stop Ragnarok? Just at this time, Thor talked to him about Kronos. This surprised Odin to discover something. That was his sense of Kronos. It is new and fresh. That is to say, in the past years, in countless repeated timelines. In the multi-universe, he has never seen Kronos. His intuition tells Odin that Kronos will be the key to Asgard's breakthrough. He wants to break the fate of Asgard Ragnarok. So Odin asked Thor to invite Kronos to Asgard. The purpose is to pull Kronos into the game. I don't think I have such strength. Kronos refused Odin. He had a bad feeling. He seemed to be involved in the timeline of Ragnarok. It's too late for you to refuse. Odin looked at Kronos with a smile in his eyes. What do you mean? Kronos suddenly looked at Odin, and golden light rose from his body. The moment you stepped into Asgard, you became the target of those beings. Because in the past years, you have never appeared. Do you understand what I mean? Odin's words were confusing. Someone else would not understand. But Kronos could understand. Because he is a time traveler. This made Kronos realize a very serious situation. That is, time travelers are actually nowhere to hide in the Marvel world. Because the Marvel timeline can be changed, repeated, folded and even jumped at will. And in the constantly repeating timeline of Ragnarok, Kronos' sudden appearance became an accident. You mean, the moment I appeared, I was destined to participate in Ragnarok, is that what you mean? Kronos asked without giving up. That's right. You are a variable. They will be curious about you and observe you. But they will not let you go. Instead of refusing, it is better to give it a try. They have not yet awakened, and there is still time for Ragnarok. Odin's tone suddenly became serious. Kronos understood what Odin meant. Those shadowy ancient gods will not come out to devour the life and power of the new gods until Ragnarok and Asgard fall. I know. Kronos sighed helplessly. He had no choice but to participate in this matter. Because he didn't want to die. But there was also good news, that is, he still had 2 trump cards. The bad news was that even if the trump cards won, it had nothing to do with him. Kronos suddenly had a headache. Fortunately, the shadow ancient god was only multidimensional, so he could still fight. If it was above multidimensional, then he would just wait to die. Can I see the Asgard godhead now? Kronos looked at Odin. A hint of helplessness flashed across his eyes. In order to touch the godhead once. The price paid is not small. Definitely. Which godhead do you want to see? Odin said generously. Anyway, after Ragnarok, these godheads will be reincarnated. If Kronos can really break through, let alone just seeing a godhead. Even giving him a few is fine. The godhead of the god of light. Kronos said. The god of light. Odin seemed to be lost in memories and saw his excellent child again. Okay, if you really need it, you can take the godhead of the god of light away. Odin, who came back to his senses, said to Kronos. Okay, at this point, Kronos naturally would not be polite to Odin. By the way, Your Majesty the God King, how much do you know about the Dimension Lord? Kronos took the opportunity to inquire about the news with Odin. Dimension Lord. Odin looked at Kronos in surprise. I didn't expect you to be so ambitious. But if you want to become a Dimension Lord, you may have to be mentally prepared. Odin paused and continued. All the Dimension Lords that exist today are quite ancient. Their existence transcends the dimension of reality. Ordinary creatures don't even have the qualifications to pronounce their names. If a mortal pronounces the name of God, he will die. The one I am most familiar with should be Mephisto. He is the Dimension Lord of the Hell system. But because of the special nature of the Hell dimension, Mephisto is not very powerful among the Dimension Lords. Even so, he also has the combat power of the limit of level single universe in his own dimension. After leaving the dimension, the normal Mephisto has the power of the limit of level Godfather. Very powerful. In addition, if you meet him, don't accept anything he hands over. Odin reminded Kronos. Then do you know how to become a Dimensional Lord? Kronos asked. I don't know. Dimension Lords are very mysterious. But I heard that as long as you can enter the masterless dimension and refine the heart of the dimension, you can become a Dimension Lord. But those masterless dimensions are coveted by Mephisto, who has become a Dimension Lord. It is simply impossible to enter the master dimension and become a Dimension Lord. Odin said to Kronos meaningfully. After all, from the creation of the universe to the present, those Dimension Lords can be counted on 10 fingers. The god of the underworld, Exasong, the serpent god, Set, the eye demon Shumagraz, the nightmare, Dormammu, the lord of the crimson universe, Starak, the god of white magic, the trinity of Vishandi. In addition to some hell-related Dimension Lords. At most, the number of Dimension Lords will not exceed 15. And most of the hell-related Dimension Lords can only be counted as half. Because even Mephisto, who is known as the strongest lord of hell, could not rule the whole hell. Is that so? Kronos fell into deep thought. In this case, joining S.H.I.E.L.D. was the right step. If he wants to become a Dimensional Lord, he will inevitably go to war with other Dimensional Lords. As long as he plans well, S.H.I.E.L.D., Avengers, Hydra, and the Illuminati will all be his helpers. Nick Fury must die, but he will avenge him. As long as he doesn't say it, who knows that Nick Fury's death is related to him? Hydra will use it without any pressure. These two relationships, plus his own strength and the status of the Sanctuary Consortium. Even among the Avengers, he will be a leader. When the time is right, he will establish the Illuminati. Become an extraordinary power independent of the country. At that time, all the superheroes on the earth will be his helpers. What Black Strange, what Green Hulk, what Sentry, what Captain Marvel. With so many powerful forces, Kronos doesn't believe that he can't grab an ownerless dimension. As long as his plan goes smoothly, it is not impossible to become a Dimension Lord. And by that time, he may have broken through the 7th sense of the microcosm, or even the 8th sense. If it was still a plan before, then now, Kronos is ready to put it on the agenda. Because the group of shadowy ancient gods behind Asgard Ragnarok, they may not give Kronos that much time. While thinking, Kronos and Odin have come to the place where Asgard stores the godhead. All the godheads of Asgard are here. Odin took out a white godhead. Is this the godhead? Kronos borrowed it. The pure white godhead gave Kronos a sacred and inviolable feeling. You can take it away and study it slowly. But it's best not to integrate this godhead. The existence of God is very special. Odin gave Kronos a piece of advice. I understand. Thank you for your reminder. Kronos put away his godhood and prepared to study it slowly after returning to Earth. By the way, I have one more thing. Can Nidavellir under Asgard help me forge an artifact? Kronos looked at Odin. Forge an artifact? It's not impossible, but do you have the blueprint? Odin looked at Kronos. Nidavellir is indeed one of the few forging holy places in the universe. Dwarfs' forging technology is the best in the entire universe. Many artifacts of Asgard were made by Nidavellir, including his eternal spear Gingnir, Thor's Mjolnir, and the later Stormbreaker, Hela's Night Blade, and the sword in Heimdall's hand. These tailor-made artifacts have their own powers. For example, Odin's Gingnir, known as the first artifact of the 9 realms, is also a symbol of the kingship of Asgard. Like Stormbreaker, the eternal spear Gingnir has the ability to automatically activate Bifrost. And it can release energy torrents, which is very powerful. The point is that Gingnir, the spear of eternity, has a special power. That is absolute penetration. But unfortunately, this power has not been shown in Marvel's film and television works. Because it is too strong. According to the setting of the Spear of Eternity, as long as it is fully awakened in Odin's hands, it is powerful enough to penetrate the entire 9 realms. It can even hit from one side of the universe to the other, spanning the entire universe. But in the hands of Thor and Hela, it becomes a fire stick. It can only be used to swing, and it can't be swung well. When Thor was in Ragnarok, he was holding Gingnir, but was disarmed by Hela in a few moves and the weapon flew away. It was very bad. Then there is Hela's Night Sky Blade. Many people are curious why Hela's sword, like the Infinite Sword, is endless. It always has. That's because of the special power of the Night Sky Blade. Infinite division. As long as the user has enough divine power, the Night Sky Blade can be infinitely divided and can also integrate. The birth of a larger and stronger Night Blade. Because the power of the Night Blade is more suitable for killing, Hela gave up Mjolnir. And Mjolnir's original thunder power is not so compatible with her death godhood. Drawings. Kronos was a little confused. Does the dwarf need drawings to make weapons? He thought of the scene when the dwarf king Kui made Stormbreaker in Ragnarok. It seems to be a simple melting of Uru steel and then pouring it directly into the mold. It seems to be very simple. But that's because the Dwarf King's hands have been sealed by Thanos. He was forced to do this. Can it be made without drawings? Kronos asked with some reluctance. Yes, but it will take a long time. If it is made by hand, you need to be on the scene. Odin nodded. As a forging master resounding throughout the universe, the forging level of the dwarf clan is definitely not that superficial. I just don't know if Kronos can wait. Because there is no blueprint, if you rely purely on manual forging of an artifact, it will take years. Okay, I can accept it. Kronos thought for a moment and said that he could accept it. But he needs to arrange the Midgard affairs by himself, then it can be done. Aspros might go crazy if he disappears for a few years for no reason. You can contact me anytime when you are ready. Odin doesn't care. He means that Kronos can contact him at any time. Okay. Kronos is already thinking about the next plan. According to the timeline of Ragnarok is still before the Infinite War. Although the Shadow Old God will not personally come down to harvest. But Surta, who received the eternal fire and restored the peak power, is obviously not an opponent that the level God Father can resist. Hela has been in Helheim for at least nearly 2,000 years. The godhood and power have long reached the peak. And after returning to Asgard, he killed all the troops of Asgard by himself. It can be said that he is truly a one-man army. With the blessing of Asgard, Hela's strength is definitely level Godfather. She will not even lose to the mature Odin and Ancient One. But with such strength, Serta of the Eternal Fire took care of it in 2 or 3 moves. And blew up the entire Asgard. Such strength has definitely exceeded the upper limit of level Godfather. It is a true level single universe. That huge body. If it is directly visible in the universe, it is larger than Asgard. The size is comparable to the Celestials. This is also the first problem that Kronos has to face. Although Asgard's destruction doesn't matter. After all, his sanctuary can take in the people of Asgard. But who knows if Serta will not go crazy? The film and television works did not explain whether Hela is dead or alive. After Serta destroyed Asgard, he disappeared without a trace. Who knows what happened? Anyway, Kronos doesn't dare to gamble. So the best way is to destroy Serta directly during Ragnarok. As for Hela, it is not impossible to subdue her. In the Marvel What If series, Hela can be transformed into the Dawn Goddess. She is also a potential stock. Oh, there's one more thing I need to tell you. It takes a lot of power to master a divine weapon. Although you are already very strong now. But if you have the power of Godhead, the divine weapon you create will be even more powerful. Odin told Kronos a word when he left. I know. Kronos understood what Odin meant. It just means that he will consider creating a divine weapon after becoming a god. It looks like the holy clothes will have to wait for a while. After leaving Asgard, Kronos returned to Earth. This trip to Asgard was quite rewarding. I have to go to the holy place again. Kronos thought about it and thought that the opinions of the Ancient One could definitely be used as a reference for matters like condensing Godhead. So Kronos went directly to the holy place in New York. He could go directly to Kamar Taj. Although Kronos' sixth sense psychokinesis now has the ability to teleport. But it still doesn't work within the range of the holy place. Because there are powerful barriers around the holy place. What is Kronos doing these days? Inside the manor house, Tony looked at Banner. He hadn't seen Kronos for a week. He asked S.H.I.E.L.D., but S.H.I.E.L.D. didn't know where Kronos was. After all, a week ago, they hoped that Kronos would go to S.H.I.E.L.D. to teach him how to practice. But until now, Kronos has not responded at all. I don't know. There has been no news since Kronos was taken away by Bifrost a week ago. Banner ate while watching TV. Since he decided to accept Hulk, his mentality has improved a lot. It's time to eat and drink now. Just waiting for Kronos' whitewashing plan. So mysterious. Tony was a little curious. On the other side, Kronos had already arrived at the holy place. So what you mean is that you got a godhead from Asgard. I want to condense your own godhead based on this godhead. Is that what you mean? Ancient One put down the teacup in his hand. Yes, so I want to refer to your opinion. Kronos nodded. Ancient One is definitely a living fossil on Earth. He has lived in a human body for more than 500 years. He has not been swallowed by any darkness. Instead, he uses darkness. Just talking about the analysis of power, Ancient One is definitely the most outstanding person on the entire Earth. I have never come into contact with Godhead. This thing called Godhead should be related to the soul. There are very few cases of multi-universe becoming gods after birth. Almost none, but I think you can. Ancient One looked at the light Godhead in his hand. But unfortunately, Ancient One could not see anything. Godhead is a very special thing. Some creatures are born with strong power and can do everything. But they do not have Godhead. For example, the Eternals. And some gods are born weak and do not have strong power, but they have Godhead. Even the Ancient One couldn't figure out the Godhead at all. Are you so confident in me? Kronos sighed helplessly. It had been a week since he got the Godhead of Light. But Kronos hadn't figured out anything. Godhead can be said to be the condensation of power. It can also be said to be the crystallization of the soul. But before it was activated, it was no different from a stone. When placed on the side of the road, it was at most a beautiful and special stone. It would glow under fixed conditions. That's about it. But whether it was Kronos or the Ancient One, they could feel the huge and vast spiritual power and divine power in the Godhead. Kronos tried to analyze the operating mode of the Godhead. But until now, he had no clue. Maybe, your power is not enough. Ancient One proposed a possibility. Not enough power. Kronos thought thoughtfully. His current power was not that strong. The middle stage of the sixth sense of the microcosm. He barely reached the level sub-Godfather. But among the level sub-Godfather, he is not considered strong. But he is definitely not weak either. After all, many gods are not as powerful as him. For example, Thor, Loki, Sif, etc. In a one-on-one battle, Kronos can completely defeat them. Are gods really born naturally? Kronos was a little unwilling. Gods are indeed born naturally, but you are different. You have the possibility of becoming a god because your soul is very special. It has the characteristics of immortality. Ancient One expressed his opinion. Immortal characteristics. Kronos fell into deep thought. If there is any difference between him and the humans in the Marvel world, it is the soul. After all, he is not an aboriginal. The soul comes from another world. Another world in the true sense. Not some so-called parallel universe. Did he get baptized when he crossed the world barrier? Kronos could only think of this. Normal souls will go to the world of the dead after death. For example, Helheim in the 9 realms, the underworld in Greece, etc. Instead of crossing the world and coming to another brand new world to live again. If you don't understand the Godhead now, then you might as well put it aside for now, maybe when you are stronger. Looking back at this Godhead of light, you will have a different understanding. Seventh sense. Kronos fell into deep thought. According to his current situation, it will take less than a year for the sixth sense of the microcosm to reach perfection. The seventh sense can also be put on the agenda. However, as far as the current situation is concerned, his body cannot support the power brought by the seventh sense. It is extremely difficult to control time with a human body. The humans in the Saint Seiya world can perfectly use the seventh sense because they originally degenerated from the seventh sense. It seems that the condensation of the godhood and the seventh sense must be carried out simultaneously. Kronos calculated in his mind. Now the power that one of his cells can carry is very limited. If converted into energy, the gas stored in a cell can destroy a car. Real destruction. It sounds strong. After all, the human body is composed of tens of trillions of cells. If it bursts out with all its strength, it is not difficult to clear the surface of the earth. But Kronos' ambitions are not limited to this. He is thinking, if one day, his cells have been strengthened to the point that each cell can accommodate the power of a fixed star. How strong should he be? This is also Kronos' goal all along. But the human body is still the human body after all. It is very difficult to achieve this goal with a pure human body. Kronos, you are finally back. As soon as Kronos entered the door, he heard Tony's voice. Are you okay recently? Tony has been in Banner's villa estate recently. I don't know if it is because both of them have high academic qualifications. They chatted very speculatively. Nothing, come to Banner to chat. He gave me a lot of design inspiration. S.H.I.E.L.D. has been looking for you recently. When are you going to give them the small universe cultivation method you promised them? Nick Fury seems very anxious. Actually, I think you'd better think about it. Such a powerful force, if everyone can master it, it will definitely be a disaster. Tony said with a serious face. The first reason why I have been coming here during this period of time is to chat speculatively with Banner. Second, Tony wants to persuade Kronos. In Tony's opinion, the power controlled by Kronos is very strong. If only Kronos controls it, it's nothing. After all, in Tony's opinion, Kronos is also a kind person. The Sanctuary Consortium supports orphans all over the world and helps the poor in war-torn countries. It is one of the few chaebol groups recognized by the United Nations. Kronos himself is a person with a strong sense of justice. Although he is a big chaebol, he can deal with dangerous situations and save ordinary people by himself. Don't worry, Tony, it doesn't matter if the cultivation method of the small universe is handed over to them. It's almost impossible for them to succeed in cultivation. This cultivation method is too picky, Kronos said nonchalantly. Kronos originally thought that the cultivation method of the small universe could be practiced by others. But as far as the current situation is concerned, it is almost impossible for ordinary people to succeed in cultivation. Kronos can control tens of trillions and hundreds of trillions of cells in his body because of his special soul. Replaced with an ordinary person with average mental power. Being able to control several organs in one's body is already amazing. Even so, it can still improve the power of S.H.I.E.L.D. by a large margin. It's similar to the feeling of opening some genetic lock restrictions. Although powerful, it's not strong enough. Kronos estimated that it can only be equivalent to Bronski at most. Not even Captain America. Kronos is not a fool. He casually handed over the small universe cultivation method without any scruples. What's more, Kronos also said this in advance. It may be very difficult for older people to practice. You say it has no effect, then it has an effect. You say it has an effect, but it's not particularly ideal. I want to pass on the small universe cultivation method. I'm afraid there will be hope only when I become a dimensional Mephisto. Kronos smiled. The dimensional Mephisto in the Marvel world has a set of special rules. That is, you can lend your power to others. But there is a price. Ancient One is the biggest creditor of the Mephisto in various dimensions in the Marvel universe. But she only borrowed and never returned. In the end, she could only run away and went to eternity. If Kronos becomes a dimensional Mephisto, he can distribute the microcosm in the form of seeds to his believers. Let them help Kronos practice. You can use the power of the microcosm. But the price is that the power you practice does not belong to you. After natural death, the microcosm you practiced will be returned to Kronos. This is Kronos's initial idea. But if this idea is to be realized, at least the Godhead must be condensed. Using the power of faith to achieve this goal is a little worse than dimensional Mephisto. But the effect is the same. Just keep it in mind. By the way, what you said about strengthening the kidneys, is it true? Tony suddenly lowered his voice and asked quietly. Kronos' mouth twitched when he heard it. This guy is really stubborn. Chapter 51. The next day, Kronos came to the headquarters of S.H.I.E.L.D. Have you decided on the candidates for the microcosmic cultivation? After the conversation with Tony last night, Kronos felt that even if he taught the microcosmic cultivation method, he could not take care of so many people at the same time. So he called Nick Fury temporarily. He said that he could select 5 people first. As for the reason, he just thought of one. For example, he had never taught anyone before. So he needed to observe the changes at any time. If there were too many people, he would definitely not be able to take care of them all. This reason was very convincing. After hanging up the phone with Nick Fury, Kronos sent a message to Alexander Pierce. When meeting with Hydra people, you cannot use the phone. Kronos must ensure that he does not leave any handle. Notified the other party of the news. After receiving the reply, Kronos began to meditate. Definitely, according to your request, 5 people. Nick Fury took Kronos to the training ground. That was what Kronos asked to build. Nick Fury readily agreed. After all, it doesn't cost much to build a training ground. Rumlow, Romanoff, Clint, Steve Rogers, Maria Hill. Nick Fury introduced the people in front of him one by one. Kronos glanced and found that only Crossbones was a member of Hydra. But it doesn't matter. Anyway, it only takes a reason. In this way, even if Hydra people know how to practice the small universe in the later stage, it can't be blamed on Kronos. This is also the reason why Kronos sent a message to Alexander Pierce. If you want to become a god, you must not have any stains on your body. So Alexander Pierce and Nick Fury must die. As for the other few people, they are all familiar faces. Black Widow Natasha Romanoff, Hawkeye Clint, Captain America Steve Rogers. And Hill, the long-legged beauty. Okay, 5 people are just right, but this person looks a little familiar. Kronos looked at Captain America. Captain America, Steve Rogers, a hero of World War II. Nick Fury introduced Captain America's identity. Isn't he dead? Kronos asked in surprise. The story in between is very complicated. But now, he works for S.H.I.E.L.D. Nick Fury didn't explain too much, so Kronos didn't ask any more questions. Steve, do you mind fighting with me? Kronos looked at Captain America. Captain America had mixed reviews in his previous life. Those who praised him thought that Captain America was a pure person. To put it bluntly, he was a saint. His thoughts were pure, and he was willing to die for justice. He participated in the action of saving the world with a human body more than once. Those who hated him thought that Captain America was a hypocritical person. He liked moral kidnapping and mouth escape others. But in Kronos's view, he was just a tool. It's okay as long as he was useful. If he became the leader of the Avengers, someone like Captain America would be the perfect thug. For example, in a parallel universe, the brainwashed Hydra Captain. Definitely, Captain America naturally doesn't mind fighting Kronos. This is his first mission after waking up. At first, he didn't care much about this mission. But after seeing the scenes of Kronos' 2 battles, he began to take it seriously. If such power can be obtained through practice, it will be a good thing for him. Come on. Kronos stood in place and signaled Captain America to attack. Captain America didn't hesitate. If the video footage is real, then he is definitely not the opponent's opponent. As usual, S.H.I.E.L.D. starts. Captain America is very fast, plus he has been injected with super soldier serum and has been on the battlefield. He has extremely rich combat experience. And every move is fatal, all of which are killing skills. Kronos also fought Captain America only with the strength of his body. The two fought back and forth. Natasha Romanoff, do you think you can beat them? Hawkeye asked quietly on the side. He came here because he heard that the cultivation method of the small universe can enhance the 5 senses. For an archer, the importance of the 5 senses is self-evident. It's hard to say. Judging from the current situation, Steve and I are probably 30% and 70%, me 30% and him 70%. As for Kronos, I can't see through it. Black Widow responded in a low voice. She was originally also an injector of super soldier serum. In the past years, she was a killer who was terrified. Her skills are all in lurking and assassination. Head-on fighting is not her strong point. But if it is an assassination, Natasha Romanoff is confident that she can kill Steve. Although the opponent is powerful, he has not yet escaped the scope of human beings. One shot will kill him. Bang! After another collision of fists and feet, Captain America's figure flew backwards. Landed in the distance. Okay, I roughly understand your strength. Kronos retracted his fist. Many people in the film and television dramas of the previous life said that Captain America was 50-50. He can fight anyone with 2 moves. But in Kronos' opinion, it's a bit exaggerated. Captain America's current physical fitness is at most on par with the civilians of Asgard. At most, it is about 5 times the limit of human beings. It's not even up to that. Then Kronos began to explain the key points of microcosm cultivation. This is the way to cultivate chi. Its source is a pocket dimension attached to the earth. The existence of chi is very special. It can not only prolong the life of the practitioner, but also strengthen the practitioner's body. It also has the ability to strengthen the practitioner's 5 senses. The cultivation of chi is the prerequisite for awakening the microcosm. Kronos said to the 5 people in front of him. The existence of chi is actually not a secret. After all, many forces in this world have cultivated chi. The most typical one is the Hand. As a famous gang and killer group. Although they are ninjas, they use the way of cultivating chi. And the microcosm is the combination of mental power, chi, and the body. Only when the 3 are combined can they burst out with amazing power. Kronos demonstrated the power of the microcosm. Golden light rose. A huge amount of oppression swept the whole audience. In Captain America's eyes, Kronos at the moment was like a god in mythology and legends. What about now? Do you think you still have a chance of winning against Kronos? Hawkeye asked Black Widow again. I think you should shut up. Black Widow rolled his eyes at Hawkeye. With such a sense of oppression, where does the chance of winning come from? No wonder he can defeat the abomination and tear the mecha apart with his bare hands. Such strength is indeed powerful. The 5 people present were very moved when they saw Kronos' power for the first time. Such power was actually cultivated by humans. This made them feel incredible. Cultivation is not achieved overnight. In the next few days, Kronos taught the 5 people how to cultivate their chi while studying his fighting ability. After reaching the middle stage of the 6th sense, Kronos felt that the development of fighting ability was much smoother. It may be because the power of the microcosm is enough to exert part of the fighting ability. So the progress is very fast. Half a month later, Kronos received a message from Nick Fury. What do you think of them? After entering the office, Nick Fury looked at Kronos. Not bad, the progress is okay. Kronos responded indifferently. Anyway, no matter how much you practice, you can't break through the 6th sense. The innate mental power has already determined the upper limit of these people. At most, it can reach the level of being able to control large organs such as the 5 internal organs. Although it can increase combat power, it will definitely not touch the threshold of level sub-Godfather. It is even difficult to reach the first echelon below the sub-Father. Don't think that the first echelon below the sub-Father is weak. You should know that the normal Hulk, Thor before the awakening of divine power, and little Spider-Man Peter Parker are about this level. Normally, those who can touch this level are already the top superheroes on Earth. Even if you look at the Illuminati in the Ultimate Universe 1610, there are not many who can reach this level. Mutant must be counted, unless you reach level 4, otherwise, you are not considered the first echelon below the sub-Father. So Kronos is not worried at all. When the subsequent plan is implemented, most people will just be cannon fodder. I think it's time for the alliance to be established. Nick Fury handed Kronos a document. The candidates for the first generation of Avengers were on it. Steve Rogers, Tony Stark, Clint Barton, Natasha Romanoff, Bruce Banner, Kronos. Are these the candidates you have proposed? Kronos glanced at the list. Yes, do you have anyone else to recommend? Nick Fury looked at Kronos. There is one, but it's not certain yet. But do you know where Dr. Bruce Banner is? Kronos looked at Nick Fury in confusion. I don't know, but this doesn't affect his recruitment. I've read Bruce's information, and I think Hulk is controllable to a certain extent. Nick Fury said slowly. He thought Kronos asked this because he thought Hulk was an unstable factor. I have no objection. Also, give me the command of this unit. Kronos put down the document in his hand. No problem. Nick Fury agreed readily. It was just wartime command, it didn't matter. But he didn't expect that after handing over the command, this team would have nothing to do with him anymore. Kronos' 2 previous battles have accumulated a high popularity on the internet. Many people now call Kronos the Pope. They call him the spokesperson of God. Kronos' appearance is very confusing. The long golden hair unique to Westerners, the azure eyes, and the extremely handsome face. If you are interested, you can search for the God of Time Kronos. There are fan paintings with golden hair. Not Saturn. When the golden microcosm rises, it looks more like God than God. The Vatican even believes that Kronos is the reincarnation of God. This has given Kronos a large number of fans. Definitely, this is also inseparable from the Sanctuary Foundation's God-making plan. When the Sanctuary Foundation first adopted orphans and funded the poor, Kronos had this consideration. In addition, the adopted orphans can be trained from an early age and become their own helpers. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone, so Kronos has been planning this for a long time. The Battle of New York is coming soon. Don't let me down, Loki. Kronos thought secretly. On the other side, Loki, who fell into the Bifrost, was not in danger of life. He was originally a giant of Jotunheim, and he also inherited the godhood. Loki's vitality is very tenacious. Have you found him? Thanos sat on the holy place, looking at the distant universe and stars, wondering what he was thinking. Sir, I have found him and he is on the way. Supergiant, one of the 5 Obsidian Generals, said respectfully to Thanos. The 5 Obsidian Generals are the first echelon of the powerful under the sub-Father divided by Kronos. They are very powerful, either mastering magic or mastering unparalleled combat skills. For example, Supergiant, although this person did not appear in the film and television works of the previous life. But Supergiant's strength can be said to be the most amazing among the 5 Obsidian Generals. To simply summarize her ability, it is Professor X. Supergiant has an extremely powerful telepathy ability. Can control a person's mind and read other people's memories. Can easily share vision with Thanos. It is an indispensable power for Thanos. Telepathy ability is very rare in the entire universe. Corvus Glaive is back. Supergiant sensed Loki's soul fluctuations. After the destruction of Titan, Thanos' mind has been twisted. Now he just wants to realize his long-cherished wish. That is to collect infinite gems and wipe out half of the life in the entire universe. Asgard and Earth, Thanos has been paying attention to them for a long time. Not for anything else, just because 2 infinite gems have been confirmed to have appeared. Both are on Earth. The first is the Space Gem. This gem originally belonged to Asgard. It was just thrown on Earth by Odin. When Odin conquered the universe, he showed the power of the Space Gem. The second is the time gem. As the inheritance treasure of the holy place. The time gem is kept and carried by each generation of Sorcerer Supreme. And each generation of Sorcerer Supreme is at least a level sub-godfather. The Sorcerer Supreme Ancient One of this generation is a top-level godfather who is famous throughout the universe. He is so powerful that he can even fight against Dimensional Mephisto with the two artifacts Time Gem and Eye of Agamotto. He has repelled the attacks of Dimensional Mephisto several times, making the Earth a forbidden zone for Dimensional Mephisto for hundreds of years. Such fighting ability makes the reputation of Ancient One resound throughout the universe. He is called the first magician in the universe. Even the fathers of the major gods treat Ancient One with courtesy. Odin also respects Ancient One very much. With these two strong men sitting in the 9 realms, Thanos has to hold back even if he has ideas. Otherwise, Odin alone can turn him into dust in the universe. Although Thanos is crazy and paranoid, he is not stupid. So he can only wait quietly for the opportunity. Not long ago, this opportunity appeared. News came from the 9 realms. There was an internal conflict in Asgard. The second prince Loki fell under the Bifrost, and his life and death are unknown. As for the reason, it was the battle for the throne of Asgard. This made Thanos smell the breath of opportunity. So he sent his 5 obsidian generals to find Loki in the universe. Even if he could only get some information, it was very useful to him. My lord, Loki is here. Corvus Glaive brought Loki to the holy place. Mad Titan, Thanos, I can't think of anything we can cooperate on. Loki looked at Thanos in front of him, his eyes full of fear. Although he was in Asgard, Loki was not unfamiliar with Thanos. For a long time, Thanos only did one thing. That is to conquer one planet after another with life. Then he slaughtered half of the creatures on the planet indiscriminately. Not plundering resources, not colonizing planets, just simply slaughtering half of the creatures. Many people think that Thanos is a madman. That's why he got the name of the Mad Titan. I can help you ascend the throne. Aren't you interested? Thanos looked at Loki in front of him and said lightly. From Loki's eyes, Thanos saw reluctance and ambition. How can you help me? Hearing this, Loki sneered. As the second prince of Asgard, Loki knew the strength of Asgard very well. Although Asgard no longer started a war. But looking at the entire universe, Asgard is still a first-tier force. As for the reason, it is definitely Odin. Although Thanos is powerful, Loki doesn't believe that he can deal with Odin. I can lend you the army and this scepter, and you only need to do one thing. That is to bring me the space gem. Thanos threw the mind scepter at hand to Loki. The mind gem is inlaid on the mind scepter. What is this? Infinite gems. Loki looked at the gem on the scepter in surprise. Loki had an impression of infinite gems. Because when he was very young, Odin's treasure house had stored space gems. Odin talked about infinite gems. It sounds like I won't suffer any loss. I promise. Loki smiled. His eyes were full of the flames of revenge. Why is he not as good as Thor? If he can become the king of the earth, then does he have the right to have an equal dialogue with Odin? Loki looked at the mind scepter in his hand, and the unwillingness in his heart emerged again. Sir, why should we give the mind scepter to Loki? We found the infinite gems with great difficulty. Corvus Glaive looked at Thanos, somewhat confused. The Black Order had always known about Thanos' idea. They also supported Thanos, but he couldn't figure out why Thanos gave the mind scepter to Loki. Let me explain, Supergiant said lightly. The mind scepter has no effect on you at this stage. After all, the mind scepter's ability overlaps with mine. I was the one who proposed this plan. Although I only glanced at Loki, I felt the strong flame of revenge and strong unwillingness in his heart. He will be a useful tool. As for the space gem, it doesn't matter whether he can get it or not. I didn't expect Loki to bring the space gem back at all. Supergiant's words made the other 4 look confused. Only Ebony Maw, after thinking for a moment, seemed to understand something. Why do we have to make such a deal and give away the mind gem for nothing? Proxima Midnight was also a little confused. Because of Loki's identity. He is the second prince of Asgard. Even if he attacks the earth, the Sorcerer Supreme Ancient One will not embarrass him for Odin's sake. And Loki's invasion is a war doomed to fail. Our current target is not the infinite gems, but Nidavellir under the rule of Asgard. Supergiant said lightly. Infinite gems are very powerful. Ordinary creatures can't stand just touching infinite gems. They will be killed by the powerful power of infinite gems. The most typical one is the power gem. Ordinary people will turn into dust if they hold it. Even as strong as Thanos, without the help of any carrying tools, can only withstand the power of one gem at most. More than that is completely unbearable. What Thanos wants to do is to collect all 6 infinite gems. This involves a question: how to safely and completely release the power of the 6 infinite gems. The answer is self-evident, that is to create an artifact that can carry the power of infinite gems. In the entire universe, the only person with such strength is the Holy Land of Casting, Nidavellir. But Nidavellir and Asgard have an agreement. The content of the agreement is very simple. Nidavellir serves the royal family of Asgard and unconditionally helps Asgard to create exclusive artifacts. As a transaction, Asgard must promise to protect the safety of Nidavellir. This was the deal that Odin reached with the Dwarf King of Nidavellir when he was conquering the universe. This deal also brought endless convenience to Asgard. After all, Asgard has many more artifacts. Let Loki invade the Earth and snatch the space gem. It's nothing more than making the Asgard royal family take care of themselves. At the same time, it can also make the relationship between Odin and the Sorcerer Supreme Ancient One less close. In this way, we have the opportunity to go to Nidavellir and find the Dwarf King to forge the weapon that the adults want. So Loki is just a move. It would definitely be better if we could get the space gem. If we can't get it, it would be a good thing to disrupt Asgard's sight. As long as we know the whereabouts of the infinite gems, we can slowly plan. But the Infinity Gauntlet is not always available for casting. After listening to Supergiant's explanation, the other 4 people suddenly realized. They also understood what Supergiant meant. At this stage, the Infinity Gauntlet is more important than the infinite gems. Because the Infinity Gauntlet is a necessity for carrying the infinite gems. If Thanos wants to realize his long-cherished wish, the Infinity Gauntlet is a must. As for infinite gems, there are only 3 known ones now. They are Time Gem, Space Gem and Mind Gem. When Loki brings the Mind Scepter to Earth, then these 3 infinite gems are all on Earth. As long as you know the location, you can plan at any time when the time is right. As for Reality Gem, Power Gem and Soul Gem, they have not yet appeared. According to the information they have collected, the disappearance of Reality Gem seems to be related to Asgard. However, it is too long ago and they cannot be sure. There is also the Power Gem. There are rumors in the universe that someone has found the whereabouts of the Power Gem. It should not be far from appearing in the world. Finally, there is the Soul Gem. This gem is quite mysterious. The other 5 gems have appeared more or less in the past years. Only the Soul Gem has never appeared. No one knows where this gem is. Quite mysterious. If you want to collect 6 infinite gems, the Soul Gem is the most difficult step. Give Loki a fleet of Chitauri, even if we can't get the Space Gem. We must disrupt the Earth's sight. Buy us some time. Thanos sat on the throne and said lightly. Yes, sir. Corvus Glaive said respectfully. Also, keep an eye on the whereabouts of the Power Gem. That gem is very important to me. Thanos' eyes were dark. For now, the Power Gem is the most helpful to him among the 6 infinite gems. The Power Gem can allow Thanos to cross the realm of level sub-Godfather and reach level Godfather. This is a qualitative improvement. At the end of Avengers Alliance 4, Thanos, who had 6 gems in his hand, was almost twisted off his arm by Captain Marvel. Headbutt is useless, because Thanos is an eternal and his body is very strong. If it weren't for the Power Gem, Thanos would not have been able to shake Captain Marvel Carol's strength at all. It's so quiet. It's like a sign of a storm coming. Kronos opened his meditative eyes. Finally reached the late stage of the 6th sense of the microcosm. It has been nearly a year since Kronos comprehended the 6th sense. Kronos finally reached the late stage of the 6th sense of the microcosm. This also means that Kronos began to strengthen the last third of his cells. The cells that were strengthened before have reached the limit of the human body. Kronos felt the strength of his body. After years of nourishment by chi and constant tempering of mental power, Kronos' body has now reached an inhuman level. If I have to describe it, it is probably comparable to Hulk under normal conditions. The strength, endurance, recovery and explosive power of the body have all reached an unprecedented height. As long as the last third of the cells are tempered, Kronos can start to break through the seventh sense of the microcosm. Because at that time, Kronos' body has reached the theoretical limit of the human body. If you want to strengthen it again, the only way to go is to become a god. This is an inevitable process. What a pity, there is still no progress in the analysis of the Godhead. Kronos sighed. Kronos had already thrown the Godhead of light to Aspros. Let the people of the Sanctuary Consortium analyze the special nature of the Godhead from a scientific perspective. Even Tony and Banner have studied the Godhead of light, but there has been no progress. It seems that the Godhead should not be touched by humans. In the end, the two came to only one conclusion. The existence of the Godhead seems to be a combination of the spirit, power and body of a creature. It contains the whole of a god. Although there is no progress, this sentence gave Kronos a little inspiration. Wait until the Battle of New York is over, we have to start to solve the tarot issue. Then rebuild the sanctuary with tarot. Kronos has always wanted to split the Sanctuary Consortium. The inner world and the outer world are completely separated. What the Sanctuary Consortium in the outer world has to do is to collect talents and make money. What the Sanctuary in the inner world has to do is to train talents and ensure the stability of the inner world. Sir, there's news from Blade. Aspros called Kronos. Oh, what? Kronos hasn't contacted Blade for a long time. Kronos hasn't seen Blade since he got the power of the Blood God. Since Blade got the power of the Blood God, the group's operations in the other world have been much smoother. Blade has hunted down a lot of blood clans. Now everyone in the blood clans in the other world is in danger. Not long ago, there was news that the Blood Clan was going to negotiate with Blade and the Sanctuary Consortium. Aspros reported the news he knew. Negotiation. Kronos fell into thought. Originally, he just wanted to restrict the Blood Clan, but he didn't expect to bring the Blood Clan to this point. Okay, you can discuss the negotiation with Blade. If you're not sure, come to me again. Kronos agreed to the negotiation. Now is not the time to clear up the problems inside the Earth. If you want to clear up the problems inside the Earth, you have to wait until the New York War is over at least. And we can only do it step by step. After the battle in New York is over, we have to find the Eternals first. Kronos rubbed his brow. The Eternals and Thanos are the same race. According to the performance of the movie, they may not be very strong. But according to the setting of the comics, the Eternal Gilgamesh has the fighting power to fight Thanos. Very powerful, but Kronos doesn't care about these for the time being. The reason why Kronos is looking for the Eternals is to find out what is hidden in the center of this Earth. Is it the sleeping god Tiamat, or the mechanical god? Or there is nothing. This is the biggest threat to the Earth besides Thanos. If one goes wrong, the whole Earth will be doomed. In addition, Kronos also wants to find the Darkhold and the Book of Vishanti. Like the MCU movie universe, there is no Book of Vishanti on the Earth where he is. This is what the Ancient One told him personally. The Book of Vishanti disappeared with the Darkhold thousands of years ago. But Kronos knows that the Darkhold will not disappear. Because the Darkhold originally possesses the property of immortality. And with Scarlet Witch Wanda's awakening, the Darkhold will definitely appear. Just because Wanda possesses Chaos Force. This power, which has the same origin as the god of the underworld, Sithin, is the best medium for the other party to descend into the real dimension. But the Book of Vishanti is not necessarily the case. In Wanda's search for her relatives, the Book of Vishanti appeared once. But that one time, it did not show any special power, and was burned to ashes by Wanda's hand. In the end, Wanda still committed suicide. Otherwise, Doctor Strange would have been torn into pieces. There is also a part of this consideration in the negotiation with the Blood Clan. Wait until he comprehends the seventh sense of the microcosm. Dracula is the best material for studying the Darkhold. After all, the source of the other party's power is the Darkhold. Although Dracula himself may not know much about this matter. What's going on? Nick Fury came to a top-secret base of S.H.I.E.L.D. This is the base of S.H.I.E.L.D. dedicated to the study of cosmic magic. During World War II, Hydra used Tesseract to develop weapons that made them vivid. They were almost overturned by the other side. And the energy of Tesseract is almost infinite and very stable. This is why all major forces have been looking for Tesseract since World War II. And it was about 10 or 20 years ago. The engine of the plane driven by Captain Marvel Carroll was also developed based on Tesseract. Although it failed later, but it created a combat power comparable to level Godfather like Captain Marvel Carroll. Not many people know about this, only Nick Fury. But he alone is enough. After all, Nick Fury is no longer the little agent he was before. But he is the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. The Tesseract, which has been stable for decades, suddenly became unstable in energy. This made Nick Fury panic. Because after calculation, the energy contained in the Tesseract is extremely powerful. If it explodes completely, the entire Earth will be annihilated. Who can tell me what you did? Nick Fury looked at the Tesseract in front of him, which was constantly flashing blue light. He was panicking. It wasn't us, Director. The Tesseract started flashing suddenly this morning. But we didn't supply any energy to the Tesseract. We even cut off the existing power supply. So it shouldn't be us who triggered the Tesseract. An old professor who has studied the Tesseract for many years frowned and said, "What do you mean?" "You mean, someone resonated with the Tesseract in the distance." Nick Fury understood what the old professor said. That's right. Although the old professor was not sure, this conclusion was the most likely one at present. Buzz. The Tesseract suddenly shone brightly. The blue light made the originally dark research room even more eerie. A black hole portal appeared in front of everyone. Aliens. The surrounding S.H.I.E.L.D. agents were all ready for battle. The guns in their hands were aimed at the inside of the black hole. Da, da. The footsteps came from the other side of the black hole. Loki's figure slowly appeared in front of everyone. I actually opened the portal of Tesseract. Infinite gems can resonate with each other. Loki looked at the mind gem in his hand with satisfaction. Who are you? Nick Fury looked at Loki and asked. He was sure that Loki was a life form from an alien planet. Although Loki's appearance looked very similar to humans. But the sense of oppression from the origin of life could not be faked. The other party might be from a supernatural race. Nick Fury stared at Loki. Interesting, a human from Midgard. Loki glanced at the agents present. He didn't care at all. Because in Loki's eyes, these people are not a threat at all. How dare a mortal hold the Tesseract? You are really careless. Loki smiled and did not answer Nick Fury's question. Instead, he walked towards the Tesseract. Fire. Nick Fury decisively gave the order to attack. Tesseract is very important to S.H.I.E.L.D. Nick Fury couldn't just watch the other party take the Tesseract away. Da 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 da. The gun instantly resounded throughout the laboratory. A dozen agents fired crazily at Loki's position. As agents, they have a more acute perception of danger. As soon as Loki appeared, they sensed the other party's oppression. Although he looked no different from a human, they smelled the smell of death on Loki. So everyone dared not let down their guard at all. Odin is still too merciful. People nowadays have no fear of God because they haven't entered Midgard for hundreds of years. A protective shield built with divine power appeared in front of Loki. Under the blessing of the Mind Scepter. It was shining. Are you the researcher of Tesseract? Come with me. Loki used the Mind Scepter to touch the professor's chest. The professor instantly became Loki's puppet. What is that? Nick Fury looked at the scene in front of him with cold eyes. Retreat. Seeing that hot weapons were ineffective, Nick Fury knew that Tesseract was probably not going to be saved. So he decisively issued an order to retreat. And Loki successfully got the Tesseract. The portal appeared again. It covered the figures of Loki, the old professor and others. The moment the portal disappeared, the entire base was impacted and collapsed. I didn't expect that we just formed a team. We have to fight so soon. Nick Fury looked at the ruins in front of him with a gloomy face. The Tesseract was taken away, and they didn't even know who their opponent was. It was so frustrating. Fortunately, there was surveillance inside the base, and it was stored in real time. Otherwise, they couldn't even restore the opponent's appearance. This was even more frustrating. In such a short period of time. Not only did S.H.I.E.L.D. lose a base, but also lost a lot of agents. Nick Fury could already foresee the accountability of the Security Council. But compared to these, the disappearance of Tesseract is a bigger deal. Go back to headquarters, and also gather the Avengers team. Tell them that the opportunity for actual combat has come. The base has been destroyed, and Nick Fury doesn't need to stay too long. Turned around and got on the plane he came from, and flew back to the headquarters in New York. The rest of the people are here to clean up the mess. Thor, I know where Loki is. At the same time, Asgard. Heimdall passed the news to Thor. What, really? Thor stood up in shock. Although he knew Heimdall's ability, Thor couldn't help asking. Ever since Loki chose to fall into the universe on Bifrost, Thor has been worried about Loki. Under Loki's deliberate cover-up, even Heimdall could hardly find his trace. But he didn't expect that the other party would appear in Midgard, which is now the Earth. What is he doing in Midgard? Thor frowned and had a bad premonition in his heart. During this time in Asgard, Thor began to catch up on the history he didn't know before. At the same time, he communicated more with Odin. Thor knew the horror of the Earth. Its danger level was even higher than Jotunheim, where the giants of Jotunheim were, and Muspelheim, where the flame giant Surta was. Let alone, just an ancient one magician made Thor feel breathless. That is a level godfather who can rival Odin. If Loki makes things worse, can he come back? Knowing that things cannot be delayed, Thor flew directly to Bifrost. Loki. Odin and Frigga looked at each other and saw the helplessness in each other's eyes. Heimdall notified Odin and Frigga before notifying Thor. After all, they are the rulers of Asgard. Loki's rebellious period is actually about the same as Thor's. Don't worry, I'm still alive, and the Ancient One will not take action against Loki. Besides, the Ancient One is not so idle to pay attention to a small god like Loki. Odin comforted Frigga. The Ancient One faces those Mephistos who are above the dimension of the Father. There is no time to deal with Loki. As long as Loki doesn't die in front of the Ancient One. Basically, nothing will happen. Not to mention that Kronos has reached a cooperation with Odin. So in Odin's opinion, even if Loki went to Earth, he would at most be beaten up. But Thor didn't know all this, so he hurriedly went to Earth through Heimdall. Call the Avengers. I know, I'll be there right away. Kronos also received a call from Tony. He knew the call from Nick Fury. Finally, I've been waiting. Kronos smiled. Then he drove to S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters. Kronos was the last one to arrive. After all, Black Widow, Hawkeye and Captain America lived in S.H.I.E.L.D., and they practiced in S.H.I.E.L.D. when they were free. Tony was in the Research Institute of Stark Group when he was free. It was not far from S.H.I.E.L.D. After all, he was the president of Stark Group, and he had a lot of things to do. Tell me, what's going on? Seeing Kronos coming, Tony asked directly. S.H.I.E.L.D. was attacked, and Tesseract is missing. Nick Fury said with a gloomy face. This made his originally dark skin even darker. Are you kidding me? Tony frowned and asked immediately. Through the information left by Howard Stark, Tony knew clearly what Tesseract was. No kidding, the other party directly opened Tesseract through remote resonance. Opened a transmission channel and entered the interior of S.H.I.E.L.D. Although it looks like an Earthling, I can be sure that the other party is an alien life. Nick Fury explained while playing the impact of Loki's invasion on the full system projection. This guy can actually ignore thermal weapons. Black Widow frowned. Among the people present, her eyes were the most vicious. After all, she was a killer, and she had to observe the human body much more carefully. Through the other party's reaction, walking and muscle movements, Black Widow can roughly judge the other party's strength. This person's physical fitness is very strong, maybe even stronger than Steve. Black Widow said firmly. The others did not doubt Black Widow's words. They have been in contact with Black Widow for more than a day or two. Naturally, they know the other party's ability. No need to guess, I know who he is. As soon as Kronos said this, everyone looked at him. Dude, you also know aliens. Tony was a little surprised. I learned of his existence by chance. You should know that I have a good relationship with Thor of Asgard. I was invited to Asgard for a while before. In Asgard, I learned of the existence of this person in the video. Loki, the god of lies and tricks, Thor's younger brother. The second prince of Asgard. Not long ago, there was unrest in Asgard, and the source was this guy. He wanted to compete with Thor for the throne of Asgard. But unfortunately, he failed and chose to fall into the universe. I don't know whether he is dead or alive. I didn't expect this guy to come to Earth. After hearing Kronos' words, except for Nick Fury and Tony who knew the inside story, the other three felt that their worldviews were reshaped. So you mean, this guy is a god? Captain America said in a somewhat skeptical tone. In a sense, he is indeed a god. And Asgard has special channels that can explore the entire universe. Loki's appearance on Earth must have alarmed Asgard. If nothing unexpected happens, Thor should be coming to Earth soon. After Kronos finished speaking, Nick Fury's face turned extremely ugly. After years of agent experience, Nick Fury has long been able to keep his emotions under control. But after listening to Kronos' words, he still felt a headache. Because this means that Loki cannot be killed. After Thor was exiled to Earth last time, Nick Fury made up for the information about Asgard. Although there are some slight differences between the myths and the specific situation. But the general situation is still very similar. According to the information, Asgard and Earth are both 9 kingdoms on the world tree. However, Asgard is at the top, so it is called Asgard. And the Earth is in the middle, also called Midgard. The last time Phil Coulson reported, Bifrost was involved. This thing is the tool used by Asgard to travel in myths and legends. It can instantly teleport the army. And strictly speaking, in the division of power in the universe, the Earth is under the jurisdiction of Asgard. This reflects the importance of Loki's identity. Asgard, the second prince, if something happens on Earth, then will the Earth face retaliation from a higher civilization? If Asgard really goes to war with the Earth, Nick Fury has no confidence at all. Don't ask Nick Fury why he has no confidence, just ask what the Skrulls said. The information is different from the myths and legends. So Nick Fury also asked the Skrulls specifically. According to the Skrulls, the reason why they fled to Earth was because this was a planet ruled by Asgard. Asgard is very famous in the universe. After all, it is a god race. Although he does not live in the kingdom of God, he is also a member of the pantheon. Odin's strength is well known throughout the universe. The deterrent power is extremely strong. They fled here because they were sure that the Kree Empire would not dare to attack the Earth with great effort. In fact, they bet right. The Kree Empire did not dare to go to war with Asgard head-on. Because there is no benefit at all. The Supreme Wisdom will not do such a loss-making business. So at the beginning, they only tracked the Skrulls in the form of a small team. Even if a fleet was sent later, it was only the fleet of Ronan the Accuser. Because Ronan is an extreme warmongerer, the top leaders of the Kree Empire are very troubled about how to deal with Ronan. Sending him to Earth is a one-for-one exchange. Using Ronan's life to exchange for the lives of the Skrulls, the Kree Empire will definitely win. But Carol awakened halfway and scared Ronan back to the Kree Empire. The plan of the Kree Empire's top leaders fell through. Through the oral accounts of these Skrulls, Nick Fury also knew the power of Asgard. Although the Skrulls are known as one of the 3 major empires in the universe. But whether it is the Kree, the Skrulls or the Sheer Empire, there is no strong man above the level God-Father sitting in charge. The strong men above the level God-Father in the universe are either originally gods, or they have a close relationship with gods. So no force would be stupid enough to go to war with a pantheon. Because this will cause hostility from the pantheon. Except for Thanos, the Mad Titan. Then how should we deal with Loki? Black Widow also realized the seriousness of the problem. On Earth, this is equivalent to the heir of a great power invading another great power. This is not easy to deal with. The best solution is extradition. Killing him directly is definitely unrealistic. Don't worry, Thor should be here soon. What we have to do now is to locate Loki. He took so much effort to steal the Tesseract. You don't think this matter is over, do you? Kronos was not worried at all. After all, this matter had almost no impact on him. Are you so sure that Thor will come back? Tony looked at Kronos curiously. Sure, because I have a deal with Odin. Thor will also be a member of the Avengers. Kronos responded lightly. This sentence made Nick Fury feel better. Loki asked Thor to handle it. That's a family matter, and it shouldn't be a big problem. However, Nick Fury still took Kronos' words to heart. Then he arranged for S.H.I.E.L.D. to mobilize all satellites around the world to monitor Loki's location. As soon as Loki appears, he will report the other party's location. Before the Loki incident is resolved, I hope everyone in S.H.I.E.L.D. is ready for battle. Nick Fury looked at everyone present. I have to go back. Dr. Banner is still in my manor. Isn't he on the list? I have to bring him here. Kronos was not interested in waiting here. Okay. Nick Fury didn't expect Kronos to find Banner. And the other party lived in his house. Huh, Thor, Banner, Tony. Nick Fury glanced at everyone present. He suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. It seemed that something was getting out of his control. I'll be here soon. If there is anything, call me at any time. Kronos said to the people present. Black Widow, Hawkeye, Captain America and Tony nodded at the same time. They all expressed their understanding. Tony naturally needs no explanation. Black Widow, Hawkeye and Captain America were originally the training objects of Kronos. During the long contact, they were also faintly impressed by Kronos's personality charm. Plus the things that the Sanctuary Consortium did. A person with great power and love. How could he not be a bad person? So they had a vague idea of AA following Kronos' lead. Kronos didn't waste any time and drove directly to the location of the top scholar. Banner, your chance has come. On the way, Kronos called Banner. What chance? It was late at night, and Banner was still a little confused. The chance to whitewash Hulk. Pack up, I'm coming to pick you up. Kronos hung up the phone and drove forward quickly. Just as Kronos was rushing towards the Villa Manor, the light of Bifrost fell directly into the Manor Villa. Kronos. As soon as Thor walked out of Bifrost, he began to shout Kronos' name loudly. Who are you? Banner walked out of the villa and looked at the guest who fell from the sky. He had already guessed the other party's identity. Thor. Banner called out the other party's name tentatively. Who are you? Do you know me? Thor looked at Banner curiously. In his impression, he had never seen this person. I am a friend of Kronos. If you want to wait for him, you can rest for a few minutes. He will be back soon. Seeing Thor admit his identity, Banner was quite relaxed. At least it was not an enemy. This location was where Kronos came back last time. So Heimdall sent Thor here directly. Who? The sound of a sports car came from a distance. Kronos is back. Banner heard this voice and said to Thor, it seems that the time is just right. Thor did not expect that he came so coincidentally. The sports car stopped in front of the two. You came quite fast. It's for Loki, right? Kronos saw the Bifrost falling from the sky from a few kilometers away. He knew Thor had arrived. So he was not surprised at all. How do you know? Can you predict the future? Thor looked at Kronos in surprise. He was still wondering if the other party had made progress in studying the godhood. Predict the future. That may take some time. The main reason is that Loki attacked a base of S.H.I.E.L.D. not long ago. And stole the Tesseract stored in the base. Kronos got out of the car and said to Thor. Since there are 3 people, it is not appropriate to drive a sports car. What? Loki stole the Tesseract? Thor frowned. He didn't understand the meaning of Loki's doing this. They had seen the Tesseract when they were very young. At that time, this thing was still stored in Odin's treasure house. Odin explained the power of the Tesseract to them. Thor knew that the Tesseract was very powerful. It represented the rules of space between universes. But Loki was alone. What did he need the Tesseract for? Thor was a little confused. Let's go to S.H.I.E.L.D. Then we'll discuss Loki's affairs. The Tesseract was once the property of Asgard. Wait a minute, I may need your help. Kronos looked at Thor who was thinking on the side. No problem. I also want to know, what is Loki going to do by snatching the Tesseract? Thor answered subconsciously. Kronos drove very fast. Soon, the 3 of them arrived at the headquarters of S.H.I.E.L.D. Let me introduce you, this is the current eldest prince of Asgard. He is also the legitimate heir to the throne of Asgard. The one who caused trouble this time is his younger brother. As for this, Dr. Banner, I think everyone is familiar with him. Kronos introduced Thor's identity. Where did Loki get the mind gem? Thor was shocked after watching all the scenes of Loki invading the S.H.I.E.L.D. base. Mind gem? What is that? Can that thing control people's minds? Captain America asked immediately. Mind gem, just by hearing the name, you can know the ability of this gem. Yes, that is the mind gem of the same status as the Tesseract, or space gem. That gem has the same power as the Tesseract. At the beginning of the universe, the Big Bang compressed the singularity, leading to the birth of 6 infinite gems. Each of these 6 infinite gems has infinite power and represents the rules of the universe. They are time, space, power, reality, mind and soul. In the legend of the universe, as long as someone can collect 6 infinite gems at the same time, that person will become the new creator of the universe. Tesseract is one of the space gems. It has been stored in Asgard for a long time. And the scepter in Loki's hand is inlaid with the mind gem. Thor didn't expect Loki to quietly hold 2 infinite gems in his hand. That is infinite gems, there are only 6 in the entire universe. But now, Loki has 2 in his hand. After hearing Thor's words, everyone present except Kronos changed their expressions. Infinite gems represent rule. Just by listening to it, you can already know how powerful infinite gems are. Not to mention that some of the people present have come into contact with infinite gems. For example, Captain America. So what should we do now? Nick Fury walked in from outside. He also heard part of the conversation just now. Loki is a dangerous person holding 2 infinite gems with infinite power. Nick Fury felt that a sword of Damocles was hanging over his head and could fall at any time. Don't worry too much. Loki doesn't have the power to control 2 infinite gems at the same time. Without the help of artifacts. Only those who can control 2 infinite gems can do it. Thor's words made the people present feel a little relieved. But not much. Director, we have located Loki. Loki's figure appeared on the full system projection. Kronos looked at Loki on the holographic projection. A smile appeared in his eyes. Just as Thor said. Without the help of the artifact, Loki could not use the space gem directly. He could only use the space gem to open the portal in a special way. Although Loki could resonate with the space gem through the mind scepter. But if Loki opened the space gem himself, he would undoubtedly become a target. Kronos remained calm, did not do anything, because he knew how things developed. Loki's high-profile appearance was just to attract attention. This way, there would be enough time to find energy to open the space gem. And Loki was absolutely confident. With his own magic, he could get away perfectly. Even with the addition of Kronos, Loki thought of a way to deal with it. Just when everyone was discussing fiercely and preparing to set off. No, I'll go. After the microcosm reaches the 6th sense, it will awaken super abilities. Psychokinesis is one of them. As long as it is within the range of my mental power, I can teleport to any place without distinction. Kronos stood up and glanced at everyone present. Quote ? Everyone present was dumbfounded when they heard what Kronos said. Is the microcosm so comprehensive? Tony couldn't help asking. More comprehensive than you think. Kronos smiled and then disappeared in front of everyone. When everyone saw Kronos again, he had already appeared in the satellite projection screen. Incredible. Loki's location is XXX. It is at least hundreds of kilometers away from us. Kronos actually teleported there directly. How wide is the range of this guy's mental power? Tony looked at the figure of Kronos in the holographic projection in disbelief. I remember hearing Kronos mention it. If the microcosm wants to break through the 6th sense, the most important thing is mental power. Now it seems that Kronos' mental power is far beyond that of ordinary people. Banner was also surprised. Is it you? Loki looked at Kronos, who suddenly appeared in front of him. He was very impressed by Kronos. When Thor was exiled, it was this man in front of him who stopped him. And forcibly controlled the destroyer armor. Give up, or should I do it myself? Loki, you should know that you are not my opponent. Odin and I are also friends. I don't want to hurt you. Kronos looked at Loki. On the surface, he was persuading. But in fact, Kronos was stimulating Loki. Now Loki will be stimulated when he hears the names of Odin and Thor. The fact is just as Kronos expected. Do you mean that you can kill me as long as you want? Loki suddenly unfolded his magic. A group of Loki figures appeared around. Stubborn. Kronos dodged and rushed directly in front of Loki's body. He pressed the air in front of him. Loki's figure was caught by Kronos. Do you want to know how you will die in the future? Kronos looked at Loki, who was struggling in his hand. Just a mortal. Loki was pinched by Kronos' throat with one hand, and his face turned purple. Kronos would naturally not kill Loki. Now the only thing Loki was thankful for was that he had made preparations in advance. The last time he saw Kronos, Loki had already realized that Kronos was not simple. It only took a few minutes. Kronos caught Loki hundreds of kilometers away and returned to New York. Such efficiency stunned everyone. The ability of teleportation is a magical skill. This means that no matter where something goes wrong or teammates need rescue, as long as Kronos can be contacted, they can be rescued in the shortest time. Loki. Thor saw Loki's figure and couldn't help but walked up and pressed Loki against the wall behind him. Who gave you your mind scepter? What do you want to do in Midgard? Thor questioned Loki angrily, although Loki almost killed him many times during his growth. But he didn't mind, except this time. Loki interrupted Odin's eternal sleep, which made Thor very angry. He naturally knew that the eternal sleep of the Aesir gods was interrupted. Long time no see, brother. Loki smiled indifferently. Something's wrong. This guy jumped out deliberately to attract our attention. The mind scepter is not in his hand, and there is no trace of Tesseract. Black Widow saw that something was wrong with Loki at a glance. You are so smart. Loki smiled and didn't refute. What are you planning? Thor punched Loki in the face. I want to be the king of Midgard. Only then can I have an equal dialogue with Odin. As a king, Loki smiled, but what he said made everyone present feel depressed. This sentence contains a lot of information. Everyone, prepare for war. Kronos interrupted at the right time. Everyone present also realized that the war was coming. Lock this guy up. Nick Fury looked at Loki. It's not time to let Thor take Loki away. Now they are in the open, and they don't know who the opponent is. It's too passive. If they can get something out of Loki's mouth, it would be the best. Even if they can't get anything out, as long as Loki is in their hands, they can relieve some pressure. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.